Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling. And today I want to talk about finding the balance. So a couple of days ago there, a couple of weeks ago, whatever it was at the point that this video actually comes out. I don't know when it's actually coming out, but whatever. I had a video on here discussing about, the variety is the spice of wrestling, effectively. Now, I think one of those things about, you need variety, you need to change things up, you need to keep things interesting. The problem that you can run into there is that ADHD booking. You've got to avoid the full-on ADHD booking. You've got to have things feel like, not that this is solely, predictable or inevitable in a sense, but you've got to have things that make people, obviously you've got to have things that make people tune in. That's the thing. That's you're thinking, oh no, they could win the belt at any minute. Anyone could win the belt at any minute, whatever. So I've got to tune in all the time, or something's going to change, something's going to happen. Yes, whatever, you could read about it on Facebook or in social media or whatever. You could see the clip or whatever else it is. But if you're part of it, then you've gotten more out of it. Each week, not just the win or the loss or whatever else it is, the title change itself or whatever. No, you're there every week going, is this the time? Is this the time? It's, how's this going to develop? Not just oh, okay, that happens and whatever, you move on. This is what I mean. You've got to have that people on their edge of their seat. They've got to be invested, and they've got to be okay, why do we care? Why are we seeing these guys fight? And who's going to come out the victor? Or is something more unpredictable going to happen? And that's the thing. It's you need to keep people on the edge of their seat the whole time. You can't just do the same thing all the time. You can't run the same people in the main event all the time. Once you've got a champion, they have to be in the main event most of the time, absolutely. But you can't have the same handful of challengers all the time. Yes, you're going to have a lot of your challengers kind of be fairly similar for a period of time, but you need to change it up. You cannot just keep going, well, Eddie Edwards is going to challenge, and Nick Nemeth's going to challenge. That's why I was saying, before in a bunch of videos, actually, where I said you have to build these other younger stars. You've got to push these other guys into that picture so that you have other people to rely on, for more events, because you cannot rely on saying, it's just Santana and maybe Nick Nemeth and Eddie Edwards, and that's about it. Or Eric Young, or the guys that have been made for, or, Kazarian, or whoever. The guys that have already been made and been around for a long period of time. Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, these guys, people love Matt and Jeff Hardy. I like a lot of the people that are on the roster, and they're very talented, and most of them do a great job of doing what they do. That's the thing. You've got to realize that no matter what, you've got to, same with Hulk Hogan. When Hulk Hogan was getting long in the tooth, and heel turns and different things can help with this, but when he was getting long in the tooth, it was okay, time to move you on and time to go with somebody else or something else. Vince had a bit of cold feet and whatever else it was, and really for a long period of time, no one really measured up as great to Hogan until The Rock, until Austin did, and then The Rock kind of did. So that's the problem when it's you're not, obviously you don't ever want to be satisfied in some ways with just drawing quote-unquote mediocre numbers, but you're not always going to have a absolute megastar on your hands. But that's the thing that you should always try to work towards. You should always be saying, no, Bret Hart should be, in people's minds, a megastar, or he should be a bigger star in people's minds. Maybe he's more of the wrestling superstar rather than the pop cultural icon like Hulk Hogan or whatever, or Stone Cold or The Rock perhaps. But, still he should be treated like this this like level. He should be saying, okay, you're gonna go on Jimmy Kimmel, you're gonna go and do this, like John Cena, used to do. Like, he's just the workhorse champion. He is the guy that is out there representing the company, no matter what. That's the role that he should have been in. He should have just been, I am here, I am the champion, and he's just him. He's, maybe tell him, hey, make sure you do keep the language PG or whatever else if you're on these things. But that's part of being a professional. If you're ever slated for an interview or whatever else, hey, you've got to friggin', avoid the swears as much as you can. But you can't just be out there being like Hogan was. You can't be out there being like Austin or anyone else. You've got to be yourself. But again, getting back to the point here, or trying to get back to more of the point here, is that's why you need like at least 6 months worth of different people. That's why, again, you need your SmackDown 6 to speak of. That's why that formula works so well, kind of thing, because if you change things around every 6 months, or maybe every 8 months, maybe every year roughly, around that period of time, things sometimes are going to feel like, okay, it's not boring, it's not stagnant. You get to see new people. Like in this scene, you kind of get to see some of these other guys that are kind of here like all the time. You'll get to see Mike Santana. You'll get to see, some of these other guys. You'll get to see Eddie Edwards. And it helps, like, again, when somebody like Eddie or whoever is taking a short break from the main event scene or whatever, not in that scene for a little while, it really helps things out. It becomes like, oh, okay, we're going to see him in a tag team role for a while. Okay, we're going to see him in this role for a while, or that role for a while, and once you've built him up again into that main event picture, you're starting to go, okay, cool. Now let's focus in on that and see what we're actually going to do with him. How's he going to get to the point of, and when's he going to get to the point of, let me challenge Mike Santana, or let me cash in my call your shot gauntlet, or feast or fired, or whatever. Those sorts of things. So when is that going to happen? And like I said before, I said, like, I think people, again, like, people want Mike Santana to be the man for a while. So you should let him be the man for a while. But the thing is, you also need to say, okay, well, what do people want more? People want to see Mike win the title back more than they want to see him face irrelevant people. They want him to struggle and get the belt back. But you've already done that twice. So if you do it a third time, it's sort of, and like the last time was like really like diminishing returns to an extent, but it was elevated because you were doing it on the AMC premiere. You know what I mean? So, like, and fans like Santana, they just want things to settle down for a little while. They don't mind if people are threats to the title. That's a different story. And I'm talking about the here and now because it's easier to talk about the here and now sometimes than to talk about things that have already happened, kind of thing. Because it's like, this is what you're doing. You're presenting this story of Mike Santana. How's he going to hold on to the belt? And that's what people want to see. People want to see, how is Mike going to hang on to the belt? Or is he going to be able to hold on to the belt? Because you've already before had him like lose the belt in only a month. So, and again, to somebody who called their shot or cashed in their briefcase or whatever. So again, people have that fear in the back of their brain to an extent for many reasons that you're going to do that again. And I don't know whether I said this before. I don't know when you should do it, because when you should do it becomes a really big question. And then it becomes like, what is the match for Slammiversary? What's the big match for Slammiversary? What's the main event? And then what's the main event for Bound for Glory? Because those are the two biggest shows of the year. So you've got to think like, okay, people do want to see this Mike Santana thing last a little bit longer, at least a fair bit longer. But we need to, at some point, we do need to take this belt off of him. But maybe, and we probably need to do it before Bound for Glory, at least. I don't know whether you should do it at Slammiversary. That would be a big maybe. But, again, I do think that it needs to happen before Slammiversary in some ways as well. I could see that. And the reasoning behind it, because you're starting to say, well, we want Santana in that picture. Maybe it should be at Slammiversary, because 3 months to build back to a big time title match is a long time, but it's one of the biggest things that you could do for this year. So again, I do feel like there's a lot in that. And, again, you're going to have another Call Your Shot attempt available at that time. So it's like, are you really culminating something with somebody at that time? Or are you going to divert and go away from that? Because, again, maybe that's what you should do. And maybe, you flip the script. Like I said, maybe Santana wins the Call Your Shot or something, and then cashes in to get the belt back after months of not being able to get it or whatever, and all of this other stuff. So that could be a way to round about things and leave people going home happy or whatever. I don't know what the main event would be if you don't have Santana in that main event, because that would feel very awkward, and people would feel like, oh, he's just in the Call Your Shot or whatever. Well, I guess he's winning it then. So that becomes too predictable. You know what I mean? You've got to change things up. You can't just... And again, maybe you should do something like that though. But it is hard to be again, just do the same thing with the same person. So that's what I mean. You've got to say, okay, people love Mike Santana. People want to see Mike Santana. We've got to give him these stories. We've got to build this drama. We've got to get people invested. We've got to, get people watching, and all of that stuff. But eventually we do have to take this belt off of him, because he can't hold it forever. And people will get bored, especially if you don't have other challengers for him. You can't just have the 2 or 3 challengers for him. You have to have more other challengers, proper main event challengers, for him to fight and either go through or lose to at a certain point. So you've got to find that balance between, everything's changing and nothing stays the same, and that sort of chaos, but the structured order of, okay, this person's going to be champion for a while. They're not just going to be champion for a week or a month. Or if they are champion for a week or a month or whatever, like Santana was, or like Josh Alexander was, or anyone you can pick out of history or whatever. That doesn't mean that they're out of the main event scene. That just means that that part of the story chapter is kind of closed and we're going on to the next chapter. They're still going to be in the main event scene. They're still going to do stuff. They're still going to be hunting the belt or doing other stuff or being here or being relevant. But again, maybe they're not in the main event every single week or whatever. Maybe they're in the semi-main event. Maybe they're in the opening match. Maybe they're in something else. They've got another feud going on, So that's what you have. You have these characters who have to do something every single week, basically. Like, maybe you can take time for somebody to go away for a little while or something else or whatever it is. But again, for the most part, they need to be there, and you need to be like, especially the people that are like the core members or the most important members or whatever else it is. Um, where are they at? Why are they at? How are they at? Etc. What are they doing this week? What are they doing this month? Whatever it is. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. You know, and even if you say, like, this person was there 5 years ago, okay, that's great. But they haven't been there for a little while. So now they're snaking back in. Maybe, yes, you can argue to say, well, that's only, like, Eddie's only coming back in because they didn't really build anyone else enough to sort of fill that slot. You know what I mean? But again, that's perfectly somewhat all right in some regards, because again, like, what would you do with Eddie if he wasn't in that position? Like, he'd just be a fall guy in the system, you know, effectively. He'd be there and not doing anything like he has done for the last, like, year, where he's been in the system, but he hasn't had all that many matches. He hasn't really done anything for a while. You know, so their role was kind of really diminished. Now their role is greatly enhanced, and now you're building Moose more as a babyface single star. And I think perhaps there is a big reason, or a bigger reason for that, which is, I think that Moose, like, kind of knows, hey, I'm going out soon, and whatnot, so I kind of want to go out, baby, or whatever. I don't know whether that's 100% it or whatever, but I think that that's part thereof it, where he's like, man, I might have to retire, or I might have to, you know, call it quits or whatever, or just like, you know, I'll be happy, I'll be healthy, and you know, like, even despite the injuries that have been through or whatever. But yeah, I won't overwork myself, and I will leave it on a big note, and, you know, on a special note. Maybe, like, he can have more of a diminished role, like he can be in the tag team scene or whatever, in the mid-card division or whatever else it is, for a little bit longer. But again, I think that he kind of wants to start wrapping things up to an extent. Not that he's old, he certainly can still go, but I think a lot of those injuries are starting to catch up with him, and he's starting to realize, oh man, I can't do this for much longer, or if I have to keep doing this for a lot longer, then I'm going to be in some serious, like, pain and whatnot. So at a certain point, I've got to call it quits, and, you know, just, you know, maybe being this is my last year being a main eventer. Like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'll have one last big gasp before the end, but, like, you know, like, for now, I'll take it more after a little while of putting people over or doing some other stuff. I'll take a more diminished role. I'll be in the mid card. Like, maybe I'll have to keep working and be just as hard on myself to be in that 1% or whatever. But, you know, and that's kind of what he did last year as well. Like, he kind of took a more mid-card, but it was more of a main event mid-card role, you know, where it was like, hey, we're going to try to put people in this mid-card division over, you know, and elevate it, you know. So again, like, yeah, that's changing it up. You know, people might not like it or whatever in some regards. As I say, people, like I said, people just sometimes want main eventers. That's all they want. They don't care about, like, the rest of it. You know, the show is, like, the revolves around the main event. The rest is just like, yeah, whatever, you know, to some people. I get that, you know, but that's not how you should look at it. You should look at it, oh, can this person break out? Can that person break out? Can this, you know, like, you know, where is this, like, don't look at it just saying, oh, this kid or whatever, or this person's stuck in the mid card or whatever else it is. No, they're working their way up. They're slowly working their way up. And the more that you say, hey, I like this kid, or buying their merchandise, or doing whatever, or coming to see them, or, tuning in to the TV, or tuning into the pay-per-views, that helps them more and more and more. Or even watching the YouTube clips, or the Facebook clips, or the Twitter clips, or whatever else it is. That helps some of these guys, by people going, hey, a lot of people watched that thing that we put out for this person. That's pretty cool, So there must be a lot of fan support behind this person and this, scenario that we just put them in that has people intrigued. So let's keep the ball rolling with this, And again, you can, I don't know how their quarter hours or whatever else it is ratings are going, but like we've seen the ratings kind of been like slowly going up. And I do think that is because WWE is such a shit show right now. A lot of people are had enough of WWE. They're like, nah, let me tune into AEW or TNA or something else. Because, or even maybe old WWE, because at least, it does feel a little bit, samey. You feel like it's a lot of the same stuff is going on. A lot of stuff with Cody, a lot of stuff with Roman, a lot of that sort of stuff, a lot of same old. Like, people still want to see some of that stuff. Absolutely, I understand that. But that's where you've got to build to it, and it be like, there's a reason for this. Like, it's not just happening because it, whatever. And you've got to say, hey, yes, Cody is our major superstar, but we can't just have Cody there. We need other people to be there to challenge him. We need Punk and Roman to be challenging him. But we also need to be building up Braun Breaker to challenge him. We need to be building up whomever else, whatever else, same thing. We have Mike Santana here. We have our established veterans or established upper level talent that we've already got ready to challenge for him. But now we need to say, okay, AJ Francis, or okay, whoever else we've kind of got that we can push up into that next level and keep there more consistently. It's your time to shine. It is your time to shine and go out there and kill it. You have got to be the flag bearer for this company. You have got to go out there and have the moments, carry the story, have the matches, do the things, do the promos, do all the stuff that is, make the sacrifices that are needed to go out there and shill for the company and make yourself the biggest star so that we can draw money with you. Because that's what it takes, especially for, like I say, for a smaller company. Getting some of these guys' names out there, like Leon Slater and whatnot, the fact that he was on WWE a few months ago, whatever it was, that's big time, viewership. Even if the viewership on WWE is going down and whatnot, it is way higher than what TNA's is still. So again, it could be a completely different landscape by saying, and what we're doing with Leon, that seems really cool too, because we're starting to build him like, he's beaten this former world champion. He's beaten, how many former world champions? That sounds like Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Anderson. That's very, hey, we're starting, not just, giving him a mid-card title, but we're giving him these big-time wins over these major superstars, And maybe Nick Nemeth hasn't been in that position for, a long time, since, last year-ish. But, ever since he got the briefcase, he felt a lot more important and whatnot. So I still think that, you've got this thing on track where it's like you have done a good job, and you reevaluate, like calibrated him and allowed him to get back over it and whatnot by showcasing him in that upper scene sort of thing. You didn't just show him to be a loser who can't win or can't get it done or whatever else it is. You've shown that this guy can get it done through hard work. It's not just because he's a WWE guy. It's because of who he is. It's because of what he does or whatnot. And his real, like, talent and his real ability. He can get this done. And, yeah. But yeah, you've got a lot of your established guys. You need to push more of these, and that does take time, but you need to be, giving them a good story and saying, okay, how do we build you up? How do we build you up? We can't have you beat Santana maybe now or whatever. Maybe we can later, I don't know. But again, we can't have you beat him now. Maybe in a tag match or maybe in something else or whatever else. Yeah, sure, okay, that's a bit different. But we can't have you beat him one-on-one. He has to maintain that for a little bit longer. He has to at least be taken out, by an attack or something else, or surprised by something else or whatever. So at least then you're keeping him protected in some ways, and keeping him strong, because you don't want people to lose interest, but you don't want people to fall victim to complacency effectively. You want people to feel like, no shit, they might change the belt any day now. They might change the belt tomorrow. They might, they're not going to. But that's the feeling that you've kind of got to set for people, that Nick Nemeth, he could win that belt at any minute now. Even though he just lost to Leon Slater, he has to now recoup from that and feel like he can win that belt at any moment. Same thing for Eddie Edwards. I don't know whether either one of them are going to win it, but again, that's the thing. You've got to start making people feel like or believe that, oh shit, they could win it at any minute. And then they're going to do this whole thing with Santana again. They probably are going to do the whole thing with Santana again at some point, or at many points even. Who knows? But again, you've got to say, okay, cool. He's had his 5 or 6 months, whatever else it is. He's had some good defenses. He's had some good stories. The first really good story that he's had thus far since winning it is the Macklin story. And this is the first story that you're really telling as well. And I mean, the Nemeth and Edwards feuds are in there as well, kind of thing. They're kind of percolating. They're not really ready to really come together now. So that's planting the seeds. That's good. It's long-term plans, or plans that feel like, hey, okay, keep tuning in because this is going to happen, or it could happen at any minute now. You don't know when it's going to happen. The main focus does seem to be Macklin, but that doesn't mean anything, because Nick Nemeth could call his shot, Eddie Edwards could cash in feast or fired. Either one of them could win the belt at any minute in the next couple of weeks. You don't know, or even in the next month. Again, like I said, when Macklin challenges Santana, maybe you don't have the match finish. They're both just down and out, and it's been such a slog for both of them, and they're both tired, and then you hear the, oh my God, and Nick Nemeth comes out and cashes in, on an injured and down and out, Santana. I would love TNA in some ways to have a elimination chamber, honestly. That would be a really cool, concept. Actually, I would think, you have to do it differently. You kind of have to do it in a different way. I don't really think you can do it in the same way. So maybe like a steel cage gauntlet match. Maybe something like that. Where you have like 5 competitors or whatever. And either like after so many minutes, a new competitor comes in, or if a competitor gets pinned or made to submit, then a new competitor comes in. Like that's the idea, where it's like you never get really any like downtime per se, too much of like, yes, you've got to wait for people to make their entrances, but they should make their, especially heels, should, like when a babyface has gotten one over on a heel or something like that, it should be like, quick, get me down there now, like run to the ring, and then get in there and start stomping the babyface to try to get your advantage as quickly as possible, because they've just had 5 minutes worth of a match, 10 minutes worth of a match, or whatever it is, and they've been beaten up for 10 minutes. Now you can take advantage because they're tired or tireder than what you are. So yeah, it's not just about having, same thing for like having matches. You've got to have different and unique and, like out of the box kind of matches. You can't just have plain wrestling match, plain wrestling match, plain wrestling match. Even if you're having a plain tag team match, that's the same thing. It's like, yeah, almost all tag team matches are the same thing a lot of the time. The babyfaces get in trouble, then they make the hot tag, and then like chaos, and either they win or they lose, so that's the basic form of tag team matches, and you see it all the time. Like, the heels start dominating and blah blah blah, but they don't win. They can't put away the plucky babyface or whatever it is, and then somehow, some way, the babyface makes their tag, and then chaos ensues for a while, and then they either win or they lose, or whatever happens. But yeah, like, so again, you can't just have standard match, and you can't have standard story, same old story. This, like, you can't, like, again, even though you rebuilt to Santana, and you might try to rebuild to him later when he loses the belt, you've got to make it feel like a different journey is going on, and it's a different reason, and people need to tune in for those reasons and need to see it for those reasons. What is Santana gonna do now? Why, like, or whatever. Maybe you're gonna turn him heel. I don't know. It's gonna be hard to do that. Not impossible, but yeah, maybe he'll serve in a different role at some point. So, and yeah, certainly in like the next couple of years he'll have to, but because it will be like, oh man, like, you again or whatever. That's the thing. You've got to keep people feeling like they're on the babyface's side. They're with them. But eventually that doesn't work. It doesn't last forever. It can't last forever. So again, you need to feel like, okay, cool, right. Here are the other people that are going to come up and come out of the woodwork. I don't think AJ's ever going to be a babyface, but, like, he's definitely going to be a big-time heel. And again, you could build back to, like, Rich Swann, and him doing a big-time match for the title if he wins the belt, which I don't know whether he will, but, that's just something that you could do. Or Rich wins it. I don't know. And then AJ beats him. Or at least AJ gets a main event match against him or something. Those are the sorts of things. You've got to keep people guessing. Keep people engaged. You've got to keep somebody like Santana there so that that people who are still interested in him can still follow him, and he has to still be in the mix, but he can't be the guy all the time. You got to change it up, but you got to keep things flowing for a reasonable, like the same thing flowing for a reasonable amount of time. You can't just change everything every single week, or 2 times or 3 times or 8 times every week. You know what I mean? That's what WCW did. Even WWE did that a lot, and people forget about it, where they changed things on the fly constantly in WWE. Sometimes it was good and for the better or whatever, but sometimes it was like, oh man, this thing's like a hot potato. It's just ping ponging around everywhere, and it makes no sense. One of the big ones was Kurt Angle had been like the champion for like a fair amount of time. And The Rock couldn't beat him, all this stuff. And then like he the Royal Rumble, and Stone Cold wins the Rumble, and then you say, okay, it's gonna be The Rock and Austin at WrestleMania. Okay. So how's The Rock gonna be the champion? Because Stone Cold's going to the main event. So then The Rock beats Kurt Angle. What does Kurt Angle go and do? You know what I mean? Like, suddenly he's out of the main event. He's not in the main event. It's not a triple threat. He's not involved, or whatever. I know he gets involved kind of after WrestleMania, but a lot changes after WrestleMania because you've got the invasion and you've got all this other stuff going on and whatever else. So it's like, and you've got a lot of people tuning out because they were like, Stone Cold was their hero and they didn't want to boo him, and he represented everything to them, So it was the hottest period in wrestling and whatnot, and then that basically killed it, And really, WWE has never, come back from that, Really, like, despite them making more money now than ever, but it's like that was their hottest period. But it's funny that Angle was the champion for so long, and it was like suddenly, The Rock beats him out of nowhere because they wanted to do Rock and Austin at Mania. They didn't want to do Rock and Stone Cold at Mania, or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I think it was kind of crazy. Like, that was one of those ones where it was like Rock had only been champion for like a month, or barely a month, or whatever it was. I think it was something like that. Maybe a little bit longer. I don't know. But like, he'd barely gotten the belt, and then he loses it to Stone Cold. And then he's off making movies or whatever for a while, or whatever I think it was. I think that's when he was going to do like Scorpion King or whatever. So he was away. He was away for like most, I think it was, no, he was there for most of the invasion, wasn't he? Because he feuded with Booker T and stuff. That's right. I might be getting my days, time periods mixed up, but he wasn't there all the time, though, was he? I don't know. I just think he wasn't there as much because it felt like he was there feuding with Jericho and stuff like that as well, though, actually. He won the WCW title during that time, and then after that, I think he kind of took a step back and then did stuff in Hollywood, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, or did more sporadic appearances. And sometimes that's a good thing for wrestlers to kind of get out of the way and be away doing something else or whatever else it is for a little while, to be like, yeah, now people can come to, see me do this when I come back, and it'll be a big time thing. So, but yeah, no, but you can not have, you have to have an amount of chaos, but that chaos has to feel like, I don't know, it's not that it's just like, this is a show or this, whatever, but it has to feel like there is some level of stability in there. You know what I mean? To an extent, because if you're looking back at it, you look and go, oh yeah, he was actually champion for 6 months or 7 months or 8 months or whatever, or whoever, whatever, the Hardys have been very stable as tag team champions. They really haven't had much great challengers of late, but now you're starting to build back your tag team scene, and you've got the new system tag team. You've got Sinner and Saint really aren't quite there on that level yet, but you've got the Righteous, and that sort of thing. So you've got a few other tag teams that are starting to form and starting to be really strong and feel like they're on that cusp of being like one of the next people. I think, like, again, if you're going to I don't think you absolutely have to do this, but if you're going to put the tag team belts on Myers and Bear Bronson, then I think at a similar, if not the same point, you need to put the belt on Eddie, because it's like, or at least try to put the belt on Eddie at around the same time, because, I feel like I said this before, I think that you want the Hardys to feel like they need to face and they need to try to get their belts back or whatever at a certain point. So they need to lose them soon so that they can try to get them back at Slammiversary / Bound for Glory, but then come up short and not be able to. And they need to have an awesome, another awesome ladder match, and maybe the Righteous are involved in that. And like I said before, or maybe they're not, maybe they are, I don't know. But maybe after that at some point, the Hardys lost, they didn't get their belts back or whatever else it is, and all that stuff after, having their awesome ladder match or whatever else it was. Then it's like, they're still trying to get back to that place, but the Righteous are on the rise, and they're getting closer and closer to winning the belts or whatever, maybe, or they're still fighting in their place to try to get to the belts or whatever. And then at some point, they've got to clash one last time, and the Hardys have to be like, no, beat us, try to beat us, try to be better than us, you're disrespecting us by not trying to actually beat us, or whatever, give it to us, fight us, that sort of thing. Your careers are just on as much on the line as what ours are. If you don't fight us, then your careers are over, You've got to be able to fight your idols, man. That's what they've got to do. They've got to have this match between the Righteous and the Hardys, and it come down to the wire, and finally the Righteous, are like, all right, man, we've got to beat him. We've got to beat him because we've got to retain our careers. We can't just lose or whatever. So we've got to win. And then the Righteous beat the Hardys, and the Hardys have to retire or whatever, in one form or another, so that then they go on to be the big tag team and rule the division after that. That's what you're hopefully building to, and I think that is what you're doing. So the Hardys need to lose those belts soon so that they can try to get them back, because otherwise it starts becoming like, again, you can't try to win them back or try to, put your career on the line or whatever else it is to try to get them back if you haven't lost them. And again, I don't know whether they're going to go to WWE or when they're going to go to WWE or whatever. But that does seem like a part of the plan. You know what I mean? So it is very much like, hey, you guys want to go to WWE, you got to drop them belts at some point to somebody, even if it's like you guys don't get pinned or whatever. But you've got to lose those belts. Same for anything and everyone. Like right now, as I said, Leon really doesn't feel like he's got a lot of competition in that X division. But it does feel like you've got plans for Leon, but they don't really involve him in the X division. They involve him moving up the card more so, and that's good in some ways, obviously, but then what happens when he loses the belt or sacrifices the belt or whatever is going to happen with him? What are you going to do with that division after he's no longer the champion and you don't really have any other people in that division? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, yes, you've got Cedric Alexander and you've got Moose having title shots against Leon, but like, I don't know. Like, is Cedric really going to carry the division? Just do that? Maybe. Like, but then who's he going to face? You know what I mean? There's not that many people that are there for him to face in that division besides Leon. That's about it. You know? And like, I think that they've got this new young kid. I can't remember his name yet. But he looks like he's going to be part of the company, at least potentially. And he looks like he could fit in the X division. So, you know, that could work out or whatever. Absolutely. You could do that. He could fit in there and like, but having a division with two people is like, yeah, you can tell a great story between these two people or whatever, but they need other obstacles. They need other people to work with and to do stuff with. And maybe you can drag people into that division or whatever else it is for that. But yeah, I do feel like you're better off trying to add more people than being like, oh, okay, well, we'll just rely on maybe dragging people into this division for a month or whatever else it is, just to give somebody a match or just to give somebody a defense or whatever. You know, I think that's, you know, pretty lazy or pretty poor kind of booking of your divisions. And like, again, maybe, yeah, you say, well, you've got 1,000 things to do and only, you know, 2 hours to do it in every single week. But that's why you say, hey, right, well, some of these things they need like 5 minutes, or maybe they like concision. This is again where I was like last week or whatever it was, you maybe like should have had this thing between Macklin and Santana already like coming to a head the week prior. So you didn't really need that promo from Santana this week, you know, where he was like, especially after the main event, coming out and saying, hey, you know, next week, you know, especially because it was the live episode, you know, coming out and saying next week when he shows up, blah blah blah, this and that, whatever. You know, no, he should have just shown up tonight on the live episode. That's what should have happened, because it was the live episode, so that it's more exciting, more people tune in. You know, like, holy crap, what's going to happen? You know, maybe even Santana loses tonight because he gets in a big fight with Macklin, and then Nick Nemeth or Eddie Edwards comes out and cashes in. Who knows? Like, that's the thing. Like, you know, you never know. But yeah, no, like, that's what I wanted to discuss today, because, like, it is very important to kind of keep everything on this very narrow kind of, like, line of things where it's like, it's not too slow, but it's not like, but you're getting bombarded with things changing all the time. You know what's happening. You can tune in and you know, okay, this thing that's been happening between Santana and Macklin that's been basically brewing for like a couple of months or whatever else it is about to get to its next stage. And even maybe next month you might be saying again, oh, well, it could be still going on or whatever. And maybe that, again, that's another way to say, okay, let's do something between Santana and Macklin. You know, like, let's get Santana away from the belt for a little while, you know, or whatever. He goes into a major feud or something with Macklin and for a while, and then you say, okay, cool. Now after those 6 months, 8 months, whatever else it is, here we are back again to him, you know, but he's gone through this whole journey or whatever with Macklin. This whole war, this whole thing, trying to track him down or whatever else it is, or or whatnot, or Macklin tracking him down, or whatever, like whatever you're going to do with it. But again, that's the sort of thing that you need to do. You need to say, okay, he is our major star, and people want to see him and want to do stuff with him, but we can't just have him. We need, and maybe Macklin even wins the belt. I don't know. Again, but that's the thing. You need to keep people guessing, and keep people going, what the hell is going on? We need to tune in all the time because we never know what's gonna go down, man. Is Leon gonna win? Is this gonna happen? Is that, whatever. All that stuff. Is somebody gonna turn heel? Whatever. So yeah. You can't ever leave the audience feeling like, oh man, Cody is the man, so yeah, we're stuck with him for the next few years. He's going to win the belt. They're going to do the predictable stuff, yada yada, whatever, etc. And we just have to wait till maybe, hopefully, they push somebody else, or we've got to start getting behind somebody else, so that hopefully they push them. LA Knight's been there for a long time, really hasn't gotten his push, which I think he deserves. Matt Cardona, just come back to WWE, got an interesting story. I don't think he's gonna win though, unfortunately. But again, that's what I mean. Keep things interesting. Bring in somebody new, or somebody that people haven't seen for a while, or whatever else it is, and say, hey, they're not just them from 5-10 years ago, whatever it was. They've been out there and they've been killing it, and now they're back, and blah blah blah. And here they come. Now they're big time, and get big time wins, especially against some big time stars. Especially early on, not just here's some random person that has been a mid-carder for a while. Wow, he got a big win over a random mid-carder, as if that matters. Again, if you're going to say this person matters and we need people to believe that he matters, okay, cool, right, well, we need him to make a big splash early on, and then, we still need some big stuff for him later on, but, he needs to make a big splash. He can't just beat some random jobber or some random mid-card person. They need to beat somebody that's nearly at the top of the card, or whatever else it is, so that then we can start going, okay, cool, now let's really start working on them. Let's maybe give them some more mid-card feuds or whatever else it is, and then we'll give them a big time feud, and then we'll see where we're at or whatever. So but it is the art of wrestling, guys, and I know you guys are pretty smart and probably know all about this, but yeah, I'm pretty obsessed, you guys. I don't know if you know that. But yeah, I am really obsessed with it, and I really love to talk about this sort of stuff. And I do think it is great for those people that don't think about all this stuff like I do all the friggin' time, who, just go, oh yeah, I haven't really thought about it like that, or whatever else it is, or haven't thought that deeply about it, or haven't really considered how it goes about itself, in the boardroom or in the production or whatever else it is. The way that they've got to structure their shows and things like that, keeping me interested, yet making sure that, nothing's just changing out of nowhere, and it's not this hot potato or just this ADHD trip or whatever else it is, where it's I cannot keep track of what is going on because there is too much going on, too many changes. I don't know who's this person was feuding with that person, now they're feuding with that person, this person has turned heel, now they're turned face, now they're turned heel, now they're turning face. What the heck is going on? Too much is going on. I cannot keep track of what is going on. There is no logical sense behind any of this, but when you can see the story kind of panning out in front of you slowly, week after week, okay, this person just turned heel, now they're acting babyface, that's a little bit sus. Are they really turning babyface, or is this a ploy or whatever? You know what I mean? That's what I mean. This is what some of these things are. you've got to be able to read it. Is this like for real, or is this like them playing somebody like a fiddle, like, or whatever, or trying to use their connections or whatever else it is, So yeah, you've got to be like looking at it like, yeah, okay, cool, this is what it is. But yeah, guys. Anyway, do remember, do not fall into the hate-filled cycle. Hate and anger can be very useful in some regards, especially for some of these assholes out there. But do not fall into those cycles, because they do not do really anything for us. We have to come to people where they're at, and that is something that I am trying to do, because I know a lot of people are out there in YouTube land and in the wrestling space, so I do try to connect with people out there and meet them where they're at, so that, and I'm not trying to preach to people, I'm just trying to say, let's all come together and have a proper, prosperous life and have peace in our world. No more of these wars over things that we could effectively just change and we could have for free. It is ridiculous. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you join me again in another one.